Alright, so I want to provide an explanation for the Doppler phenomenon that we call the high PRF imaging, okay, or HPRF Doppler. Alright, so if you're imaging with say a curved array transducer and you're scanning about 20 centimeters deep, then you're going to be limited to how fast your Doppler PRF can be because of the depth of your image. So at 20 centimeters deep, it takes 260 microseconds to do the complete round trip where we get an echo back from the deepest portion and it comes back. So that's 260 microseconds. And at that rate, at that depth, our pulse repetition, the maximum pulse repetition frequency we can have is 3.8 kilohertz, which is just 260 microseconds if you take the reciprocal of it. Okay, so we're limited to 3.8 kilohertz, and if we recall the Nyquist limit, we'll just call that Nyquist limit, is the PRF over 2. So our maximum Doppler shift then would be the PRF over 2, which would be 3.8 divided by 2, or about 1.9 kilohertz. Okay, and so that's the maximum Doppler shift we would be able to have at 20 centimeters deep. Well, that's not that fast. That actually translates into a velocity of the blood at the maximum 60-degree cosine of 0.77 meters per second, which is not actually all that fast. It's okay for most things, but if you have a stenosis, it won't take care of it. What do we do? Well, we have to get so if we have a velocity of 120 meters per or centimeters per second, okay, or 1.2 meters per second, then we're going to find that that for this you're going to have a Doppler shift of about 3 kilohertz. And that's assuming, again, a 60-degree angle. All right, and this is assuming something modest that can penetrate into the abdomen, a 3.8 megahertz probe, okay, which is about what the frequency is for a Doppler probe looking into the abdomen. All right, so if we're limited to a Doppler shift of 3 kilohertz, then, you know, for this, our Nyquist limit is going to be equal to 6 kilohertz. The PRF divided by 2 is the maximum Doppler shift we can have. So we're going to need a PRF of 6 kilohertz in order to detect a Doppler shift of 3 kilohertz. And so how do we do that? Well, let's go back to our drawing, this image. And so, again, if we're 20 centimeters deep here, that Doppler, to get a 6 kilohertz PRF, it's only going to allow us to image at about 12 centimeters. Okay, so we could put our sample gate at 12 centimeters without aliasing. Okay, but as soon as we move it farther down, and remember the PRF on our image is still limited to 3.8 kilohertz, but at 12 centimeters we can have a PRF on our Doppler of 6 kilohertz. Okay, so we could do that. So we could have a sample gate here at 6 kilohertz, but that doesn't help us get down here, right? So what we do is we send a 6 kilohertz signal to this level, and then a long time before the echo gets to our deepest part here and starts coming back, this 6 kilohertz signal is going to come down to 12 centimeters, and then it'll come down again. We'll send out another pulse, and then we'll send out another pulse. Okay, so we'll have multiple pulses along this for each pulse along the depth. So the grayscale imaging gets one pulse to go 20 centimeters and back, and then our Doppler imaging will get multiple pulses to go let me get rid of these. Okay, so we use multiple pulses to get to 20 centimeters deep on our Doppler, but one pulse on the imaging. And that ends up giving us multiple sample volume gates on the image. Okay. Now, this works if you have your one vessel down here at the depth you're trying to image at. It won't work if you have two vessels, one at each sample volume. If you have this situation, what you have to do is you have to go find another window so that that second vessel is not in one of the sample volumes. So the only one you're interested in is down here. Make sure that's where you want it, and then make sure that your windows are such that you don't have another vessel in your sample volumes. Okay. And that's how PRF works, and that's really all you need to know about it. It's probably more than you need to know, but I think that helps you understand why we get multiple sample volumes with PRF imaging.